Okay.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Sharon Meyer, and I work at Woodstock Academy, and I'm the host for the session. It's 3:15, so I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. My job is to be the facilitator and also to introduce our speakers for today. So I'm going to ask if everybody could just keep your microphones on mute unless you want to ask a question. I'll also be monitoring the chat. So for those of you, the presenters, if someone posts a question in the chat that you don't see, I'll read it out loud for you, okay? So if you have comments or questions, you can put them in the chat if you want, and I'll be watching that as the session goes on. Okay, so here we go. Welcome everybody, and welcome to NEACT. The workshop is called Escape Room Online Summative Activity. And I, for one, am very excited to hear what they have to say about escape rooms. So we have three presenters today. Pam Cafasso is a former engineer turned chem and bio and robotics teacher, a graduate of Johns Hopkins. She has been at Bow High School in New Hampshire for 6 years. She won the New Hampshire Science Teacher Association Novice Teacher Award. She also coaches VEX Robotics. We have Brenda Mitchell. Brenda has been in education for over 30 years, teaching chemistry, biology, AP chemistry, and forensics. She graduated long ago in a faraway galaxy from UC Berkeley. Brenda's claim to fame is that one former student is the mayor of San Francisco, and another is the New Hampshire state epidemiologist. She also coaches a LARP group. Oh, you should talk to Jerusha because she loves LARP. Our third presenter today is Sam Dixon. Sam is an English teacher and library media specialist at Bow High School. Sam, thank you for coming to this meeting.
I don't have any credentials. I didn't come from any colleges or anything like that. So
you're so brave to be here. I mean, English teachers, an English teacher sitting amongst all these chemistry teachers. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
He received his undergraduate degree from St. Michael's. He is known for his technical skills, filmmaking and editing, rustic furniture, and photography. He coaches a LARP group, the Video News Group, the 3D Printing Club, Harry Potter Club, Literary Magazine, and many other groups. Wow, how did you have time to come help us? You're a very busy man. All right, so without any further delay, I'll let you guys take away the presentation. So thank you for being here.
All right, I'm going to attempt to share our slides, and we'll see how well that works. If I can see them, that would be helpful. All right, well, Brenda, why don't you go ahead and start talking, and I'll try to figure out why I can't see them.
Okay. So way back in March, when we first went on our COVID leave, Pam said, what are we going to do for our final, which is usually a lab? And I said, I have no bleeding idea. So after a while, she said, have you thought about an escape room? And I said, no. So then I started thinking about it and thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, we should do this. We should do an escape room. I know what I want it to do, but I have no idea how to make the computer do that. So naturally, I emailed Sam Dixon and said, Sam, help us out. Tell us how this is going to work. Oh, there we are. We're back now.
Okay. Can you actually see the slides?
Yep.
I can.
Excellent, because that was totally by accident. Okay.
You go for it. So the idea of this was to create a program with a bunch of choices for students so that they could show us what they knew in a different way, since we couldn't do our usual final lab and we were online. So we grouped students. We had even though they were in groups, they discussed in groups, and each individual student completed an answer sheet. We decided to make each room a theme. So I'm sure, illegally borrowed from Star Wars, The Office, Alchemy, MacGyver, Summer Camp. We had other ideas, but at this point we ran out of time. What's featured here is that students had choices. So we asked them to choose 2 rooms, mostly determined just because we only had 2 45-minute periods to
Brenda?
do this in. Yes.
Brenda, can you move your mic just a little bit away from your mouth? Because you're coming through pretty loud.
Okay, how's that?
Oh, thank you so much.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blast everyone out.
That's perfect, just the way it is right now. Thank you.
All right. And the other thing I thought you needed to know is that our chemistry course is based around water, and we do a whole bunch of different units in water, but that's why you're going to see so many questions about water in each of our rooms.
Oh, we did keep this in. I threw these in. I went back and I found like the text that Brenda and I went back and forth about this. One of the great things about being a librarian is that I get to help out teachers in all sorts of different ways. And this is the kind of thing that I live for as a librarian, is getting to work with classes and work with teachers in all sorts of creative, unique sort of ways. And so I just thought this was a fascinating conversation. I think we started at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night one night. Yeah, mm-hmm. So it was like 8:30. We started like throwing stuff around. By the next morning, we kind of had an idea as to what it would look like. So my advice to anyone out there who wants to do something like this and you have no idea how to do it, go talk to your library media specialist at your school, talk to your computer technology integrator, talk to some friends who might have some ideas on what you can do, because the collaboration between the staff on this, I thought, was just absolutely fantastic and so much fun.
So yeah, that was our first reason. Why do this? It would be fun for us to make, although it was also a lot of work, and it would be fun for the kids to do. It would be different than any other online final exam that they had to take this year. We were hoping that the students would be engaged and interested, and it was flexible. They got a lot of choice built in, and we all know how high school students like choices. Oh yeah, and it's virtual, because that's what it was about.
Yep. All right, shall we go into this? Anybody want to go into the escape room?
Me.
Yeah? Okay. All right. So when you get the slides, anytime you see something that's cocked at an angle like this, it should be a clickable link, and we put copies of all these files into the NEAC drive, so hopefully it's all going to work. Keep your fingers crossed. So when they first come in, they come into the atrium, so that's where everything else happens. You need to present that. I'm not going to try to make sure the sound works, but there's like background music for all this, courtesy of Sam.
Of course there is.
Can you hear it?
No.
No? Okay, no. I can hear it. There's mysterious music going on right now. Okay, so it gives them some basic instructions. And then each of these icons at the bottom takes them to a different room. Okay. If you keep going in here, it gives you a little bit more instructions about what they're supposed to do. And we'll talk in a minute about how we had them divided up. And here we go. So we had 4 sections of chemistry last year. So each one has its own link to follow. So Brenda, do you care which one I do?
Pick one.
Period 1 it is. Okay, so period 1 was divided into breakout groups. If you've never, this is all based on Google because we're a Google district. So if you've never done Google Meets breakout rooms before, you can do them right on a slide, and then they just go into each one. So if we just pick a group, it's going to take them to their individual place and into a meet. And we are not going to go there.
Nah,
I can't get to the place to close it. So we can move on. So they're going to decide which 2 they want to do as a group, and then they just go in. So we are actually going to go to summer camp. So let me get out of this one for a minute. Go back to our original slides.
You guys have a copy of this whole thing because, as Sam will tell you, the hardest part of this...
Brenda, we're losing you.
The hardest part of this is, see, now this is where I wish I could read her mind and knew what it is I was supposed to say.
I think it's getting the mechanics to work. Sam, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, some of the
I heard someone describing this for a Microsoft earlier. It's the same thing where you have to create on your calendar, you create groups, you invite students to the group meetings, then the meeting exists and you can put it onto this with the kids in the group. It's quite a pain in the rear to set up, but it works eventually.
Okay. Sam,
so-
you want to add anything?
Sure. Setting this up, I took inspiration from some projects I had done in the past with students. I used to teach a mythology class, and I would have the kids do these kind of choose your own adventures using Google Slides and hyperlinks as a way to kind of jump around. So instead of go to page 25, you can just create some hyperlinks to kind of jump around. So I'll talk a little bit more, I think, about the actual organization, some of the technical stuff later on. I think we've got some slides based on that. But I wanted to create something that was really very dynamic, that would allow kids to kind of click back and forth and kind of jump around a little bit as needed. And so that's kind of what I went with this. So I think I'll talk more about the technical stuff later on if you want to just kind of show them kind of roughly what it looks like.
All right. So I am going to jump into summer camp. So all the kids would be coming into the slideshow at the same time while they were on a meet. And then we can just progress the slides. So it will be, see now I can hear it, you can't. Unfortunately, it is playing the Hello Mudda, Hello Fada song about going to camp in the background. Which none of the kids got, but we thought was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an intro video. I'm not going to take the time to go through it all. For each one of them, there's a short little intro video to kind of set up the scene for them. And then we get into some story. So there's a storyline to follow, which makes it a lot more immersive and interesting. And then we go on, we're talking about what's going to happen in camp. So now we get to the choices. They have choices of activities. They're going to have to do all of these anyway. But they can choose which order they're going to do them in. So these were set up thematically. Everything is themed in every one of them. So if we go to archery, it's going to show up as there's something going on. Somebody shot the car. So we're going to do a little we're going to answer some questions about accuracy and precision here. Okay, so there's all the arrow holes in the car. Where were they aiming? They were aiming at the tire. So they're going to go through and they're going to have to figure out which one. Based on their archery practice that's been recorded, they have to figure out which of the campers, or counselors in training, I forget what it was for this one, I think it's campers, which of the campers actually did the deed here. And we're trying to look at who's accurate, who's precise, and who's both. So this was a fairly simple one. Notice down here in the corner, if you can see my mouse, there's a stop sign. Did you put your answers on your answer sheet? We'll get to the answer sheet in a minute. So there's a lot of reminders in here to make sure you're actually recording your work, because this is going to be graded. When they finish with that, there's links to go to the next. So all this is based around hyperlinks from slide to slide and bookmarks in the slides, which is a pain in the butt to set up, but once you have it done, it's not that bad. You just have to stay organized, and we'll talk more about that later. There's another one for water sports. Let's see, so now the bag company down the road has put stuff in the water. What are we gonna do? Oh no, we have to get the chemicals out so everyone can stay safe. What can we use to chelate this? These are the supplies that you have available. How can you remove lead nitrate from the pond water with these materials? And figure it out. And then there's an answer sheet that goes along with this that walks them through various steps that they need to do. Okay, did you put your answers on? Hopefully they did. Hiking trip, they had to solve some chemical reactions. And they had a bunch of them. So that was helping them choose their path. And I think that's it. Did we go through all of them? Mm-hmm. And then for each one, there's an ending slide, which allows them to click through to the next adventure that they're going to do.
Right.
Okay. So
and remember, the whole time that they're working on this, we have access to all of their meets. So we're going in and saying, listening and saying, how's it going? sounds like you guys are stuck on this. Looks like you know how to do this. What questions do you have for me? And they could also email us. If we were in a meeting with a different group and they had a question, they could send us an email, and I'd keep my email open so I could see whether or not they were stuck. Most of the getting stucks were silly. They were things like when they asked me the question, they knew the answer. Like, oh no, I'm in the office and there are all these reams of paper and it says organize them. And I would say, what's on the reams of paper? And they'd say, chemical reactions. And I'd say, And they'd go, oh, we know how to organize chemical reactions. You can go away now. Very, very quick like that. Now, I saw
Question here that says, do they get a group grade?
they did not get a group grade. We checked in on all the groups and listened to what they were saying. And what was amazing to me is the very low level of apparent copying that was going on. I think a lot of that is because the questions were very open-ended. Within a group, I would often have people who wrote different things, despite the fact that they just discussed it together.
It was amazing to me how many times when I popped in, they didn't even realize I'd popped in until I said something because they were so intent on what they were doing.
Yes.
To me, that's the sign of an awesome assignment. Oh, Brenda, we lost you again.
There's another question here. Was there a benefit to doing it in slides versus having them do it in Google Forms where you can have them enter the answers?
It's much easier to do open-ended answers in the slides format with an answer sheet, because if you do it in Google Forms and look for answer verification, you can't do open-ended. So it wouldn't prevent them from moving forward. So, and this gave us a lot more bells and whistles. It was a much more immersive experience. I actually have a very quick one that I did with Google Forms, if anybody wants to see that towards the end of the presentation. But you'll see that it's much more bare bones. It's not nearly the same level of interactivity.
That's what I like about the slides too, is that it really does provide a really immersive experience. It's much more dynamic. Kids can kind of jump around as needed. You can kind of play with it, make it more visual. You can add the audio, you can add some video. And I know you can do a lot of those different sorts of things in forms, but it just doesn't have the same kind of, like I'd mentioned earlier, like the idea of a choose your own adventure book. This to me felt more like a choose your own adventure than anything we could probably create on a Google Forms.
And this is not something you would do for a quick formative assessment.
Oh, God, no.
This was a lot of work, but now that we have the framework, it'll go a lot faster in the future if we want to do other ones.
Do you think you could take this one and then like replicate the whole format and then work backwards from there? Like
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason we're giving you our copy is you could literally make a copy of this for yourself, delete all of our content, and you're still going to have all of the
hyperlinks.
Yeah, the hyperlinks in there, which is the hard part. And please do that.
Yeah, feel free.
Now, just as a warning, though, some of those hyperlinks may change too. So,
oh yeah.
For example, if you don't want to do like the alchemy thing, or if you only have this one set of whatever you have, you may need to set up links to all of those, to whatever new sets of slides you might create. Because that might be a place you always want to make sure you double check your links. I don't know how many times I went through these to double check the links to make sure that everything was working in the appropriate order and in the appropriate way. Because my fear was I would miss one somewhere and all of a sudden a kid would go click on something and end up in some completely different place and have to go see Ms. Mitchell and Ms. Cafaso and be like, I'm lost, where am I? And then they'd be like, I screwed that up. So I double checked those. We also had some, I think it was Pam's kids
yes.
Go through these. And I don't know, Pam, if you want to talk about that or plan to talk about that.
Let's get back to that later because we need to talk about how you guys organized setting this up in the first place. I think everyone will be.
One question?
Sure.
When the kids click on a link, like say they're in the summer camp and they click on a link, are they then, are other groups in on that link also?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Each of them in their own meet is in their own copy of it. So they travel together and no one else travels with them. It was interesting because I think the hardest question, according to kids on the whole thing, was deciding which two to go to. And I know on the first day they spent quite a bit of time arguing at the beginning about which one to do. And then it was funny because later classes came in my first class, ton of them picked the office. And then the second.
She's gone again.
Yep, we lost her again. Brenda doesn't have a very good internet connection at her house. So anyway, they talked amongst themselves. So the later classes kind of came in with a little bit more background knowledge about what this was all going to be about. And they
5 minutes.
There she goes. There she's back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I go in and out. My internet's interesting. We had 45 minutes for each because that's what we were allotted for our time. And I think I had 3 groups who asked for extra time, and it was like an extra half hour after the 2 45-minute periods. And I don't think on either one it was the whole group. It was some individual kids who were writing a whole lot on their response, because you'll notice that the response sheet is very open-ended.
All right, so Sam and Brenda, do you want to talk about how you started organizing this to do it from scratch?
Sure. I think the most important thing for us to start off with was just like a straight up Google Doc filled with lots of hyperlinks and ideas. So I just took a quick screenshot of kind of the start of it, of roughly what it looks like. I made sure I tried to get in as many of the links to the various docs as possible, because we're working with, I think, 6 or 7 different projects within Google Drive. So we had the atrium set of slides, we had a set of slides for the ending, we had slides for each of the 5 rooms, we had this document. So it was really important for me to try to stay focused. So if my computer crashed, there was one easy place where I could go to and just start clicking on the links to pop everything back up. I tend to have a lot of tabs up at the top when I was working on this. So I'd have, the atrium, the end link, and then the 5 different rooms. Because I'd quite often kind of go back to try to compare, like, okay, what did I do in Star Wars to what did I do in the summer camp? What did I do in the office? And as I look back through, I can kind of tell like which ones I did last, because they were, I think, kind of the better ones. They came out better, and like I've already had some practice with it. But these links were absolutely crucial for me to have, just to kind of quick jump to places. The other thing that this was really great for is I don't know much of anything about chemistry. I can come up with a story, like anything. Like creative writing is kind of like where my strong suit lies as an English teacher, I think. So like I think those skills really helped me out with this part of the project. But the trying to figure out, like, I don't know what you're going to do with this stuff here. So Brenda started kind of listing out some different things she could do. And then I tried to figure out how that could tie into that sense of story, so it would feel like that choose your own adventure, that you are in the middle of this story kind of immersive moment. And so having these notes was really helpful. And so we could add little comments back and forth. We could highlight, and of course we still text each other back and forth. We got on Meet a couple of times. That was important for me because I wanted to make sure I was going in the right direction. Not knowing anything about chemistry, I wasn't sure whether I was just like in the completely wrong direction. And I think there was a couple of places in, I think it was maybe MacGyver in the office, where I was like, I don't know what you want me to do here. And so we were able to have some conversations to kind of keep things moving in a progress. Brenda, did I miss anything about our structure early on? Like this was, I think.
No, it was a lot of back and forth. A lot of back and forth of Sam saying, okay, so this is your outline of what you want to cover. Here's a story. And me saying, okay, but the story also needs to go this way because we have to include this. And then him going, oh, I can do that by doing.
Yeah.
And don't get the impression that if you try this, it has to be quite this elaborate.
Oh, yeah, we got a little carried away.
I think Brenda and Sam have a reputation when they get together that they go completely over the top. So, having 5 to choose from when you only want them to do 2 probably was a bit of overkill, but well, they were having a blast.
We also did 5 because we thought the kids were going to have a 2-hour final exam.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Originally.
Like, well, we need to make sure that they have enough to work with. I think we were kind of planning that they were going to do 3 or 4.
Yes.
And then and I think we were originally planning to do 6 rooms.
Yep.
Which I'm glad we didn't do because that would have been a lot. But
and then the final schedule got announced, and it was a lot different.
Kind of the last minute, like a week beforehand, and we're like, we did all this work, and we only needed to do like 3 of these rooms.
I know. But on the other hand, this is the first final I've ever given where students in the middle of the final, when I'd say, how are things going? Their comment to me was, you did this? You made this? You didn't get this from a company? This is so fun.
All right. I think we should probably move on.
Okay.
This looks like a Sam slide to me.
Yeah. So to me, as I create things, like I'm a very visual kind of person. So I always try to think about visual elements to create a sense of where the students are and what they're working on. So when you notice through the camp one, the summer camp one, they were always color coded. So the hyperlinks, I highlighted them and changed the color of the links so that they were color coded. And then they went to slides that were the same color. So the link might be green. And so when they click on the green link, that would take them to a green background. Because I wanted that extra layer of awareness as to where they are. I may have been overkill. Maybe the kids didn't really necessarily need that, but I always try to think of like, what different ways can I help structure things so students will know where they are. So like with the Star Wars ones, I kind of kept a consistent background, but I changed the font colors for each section. So in the section where they had to, I think they were trying to filter the water out so Luke Skywalker could have a drink of water, because the Dagobah swamp is kind of gross and disgusting. You don't want to drink that water. I colored that blue. And then when you had to make a fuel, I changed that to green. So the font color was green, because I wanted to make sure that it was very clearly delineated, like this is a different section. So the backgrounds, the fonts, the colors, the images, I tried to use all of these different visuals as different ways to kind of keep the kids aware of where they are in this project and what topic they're working on.
That also adds to the immersive quality of it, I think, is like you're in the office when it's all the same, that, typewriter typeface and black and white paper look, and,
So that was all like conscious decisions on my part. Like there's no random backgrounds. I always try to keep things very consistent and clear. And it's amazing what those visuals can do for kids. It's just a simple little thing. I think, we're like, well, not a big deal. But I think for some kids, it can be really, really helpful. The other thing about visibility is I've seen way too many student projects, and I thought I would just throw this out there to make sure that there's enough contrast between your backgrounds and your images. So here's just a couple little different ideas. I use a lot of PNG files as well, because I think they can really make things look a little bit more, pop a little bit more. So you can always play around with some of that stuff, but visibility is always absolutely crucial.
I love the clue idea. We did have a couple of extra credit ones, and the kids who did it were, it would blow me away at how hard I was laughing while I read what they did, because they were crazy questions. And usually when we do the lab test, if you need a hint, then I'll give you, this hint will be 1 point, or this hint is 2 points. So that would be a great idea to build in.
I don't think we need to watch this video. I built this really quickly for anybody who wants to learn how to make hyperlinks. It's really easy to create hyperlinks throughout a Google slide. I believe PowerPoint and Microsoft products do very similar sort of things. But the slides allow you to, when you create a hyperlink, you can just select which slide through your series that you want to link to. And then you can create external URLs, add that all in there as well. So I created a little tutorial video if anybody needs that. Bookmarks are for Google Docs or like Microsoft Word. Those are essentially, they just make like little bookmarks on the side of your text where you can then link to throughout your Google Doc. Because you could easily do this in a Google Doc as well if you want. I like the visual aspect of Google Slides, so I think that was kind of fun to use slides, but we could have easily done this in Google Docs as well. I think we already talked about this a little bit about like make sure you get that impartial third party to review it. Because
can I jump in for a sec, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, so after these two crazy people put this together for the most part, while I was off doing other projects, I went through and tried to do it all myself. And doing all 5 rooms was a lot. So I enlisted the help of my own children. My son was currently in AP Chem last year, and my daughter was a freshman in college who was sent home. So I had access to 2 kids who are good chemistry students. So I had them go through and actually do every problem, every link in the whole thing, and check it against the answer sheet. And we found problems. So it's really good to have somebody who has not been directly related to building it go through it and make sure that it's understandable, whether that's an older student, like if you have a TA, or if you have a colleague that can just check it for you and put a little bit of time, and it's well worth the time spent because you know what it's supposed to do. They don't. So it's very, very useful to have that quality control check, especially the bigger it gets and the crazier it gets, the more you need that. Okay, for the answer sheet, should I talk? This was me, so I'll talk about this part. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, this is a clickable link so that you can go to it yourselves. We did this in Google Docs because everything's Google. This was also color coded. For virtual learning, I like to do my stuff so that everything's set up in tables where there are boxes for the kids to type in, so that as the more they type, just the box just automatically extends out. So as we go through here, there's different ones. So Star Wars was in blue. A lot of the questions are like, what makes you think that? This is when you're definitely going to differentiate between student answers. Okay, because even if they all have the same, how will you purify the water, they're going to explain it differently, and their explanation for how that works is going to be different. These chemical equation tables were a pain in the butt to make up, so feel free to copy mine and adapt them to your needs, because they were not fun to make, but they work really well because the students just come in and type in the boxes. Okay, and everyone, you assign this through Classroom so that everyone has their own copy. So they're going to go through, and then the next one they start with is summer camp. So it goes through all the different sections. They can jump around as much as they need to and fill everything out. So again, if they needed to do so, now for some of these things, like for the Stoic, I told my kids, if you want to write it out on a piece of paper, take a picture and insert the picture, that's great. That works fantastically, because no one wants to type out a Stoic problem. Or if you do, I can't be your friend, I'm sorry. So again, color coded to help keep them track of where they are. And I tried to make the color codes kind of match the slides to some extent. Okay, they had some sorting ones where they had to sort stuff out. Go ahead, Brenda.
We had also spent some time in class showing them how to type subscripts for lab reports. So we did require that they type subscripts. And yeah, they could look at the answer sheet first and pick which tasks. The caveat is that every one of the tasks involves stoichiometry, every one involves therefore some chemical reactions, and every one involves something about solubility, because those were our big pushes for the year.
And then most of them had something with identifying different types of chemical reactions. I think those are the 3 biggie things that we really had in there. And there was a little bit of variability, but as long as they hit those big things, that was really all that we cared about for this assessment.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we come back here, so it worked well for user-friendly. My policy personally was that I always allow kids, if they had access to a printer, which most of our kids did, they could feel free to print it out, write on it, and then send me scans, or pictures, scans are better, of their work, instead of actually doing it electronically. It was hard to flip back and forth between slides and screen stuff, and anytime I could get them to do something off the screen, I think that's a good thing when we're virtual. So that's also an option for them. They could just send me pictures of the pages that they did.
Yeah, we had them at the beginning of this download a free app that turned photographs into PDFs. Because they're so much easier to work with for us. And since we are a one-to-one school and every student had at least Chromebook, they were all able to do that.
Yep. And there's lots of free apps. You can just have them look for it. It doesn't really matter which one they use. Okay, so for grading, Brenda, you want to do this one?
Well, it says we asked them to use the honor system. Where I know I've heard in the other groups about the honor system in other classes and people copying, there was not a lot of evidence of that going on with our students, and I'm not sure why. But what we did before every single summative that we did online was say, this is mostly going to be the thinking process. It's not the whether or not you got the balancing right. It's whether or not you can explain to me how it's balanced. So they seem to follow that very well. And we had them, again, discuss together and record their own work. And as I said, I graded them by group, and they had pretty much done that.
When she says she graded them by group, she means she graded all of the
students
work for a group at the same time, not that she graded them as a group.
Right. And then I could look and say, are there any things here that are exactly word for word of each other? And if they are, they better be the recall part at the beginning and not the explanation at the end, because they knew specifically to do that. Now, I used a standard answer key with point values for each item. The how to explain it's were worth way more than the what you did. And went through and graded it, and it was a very typical profile. I did have a couple of kids who managed to fail. The rest of their groups did really well. So it was one of those where, like, God, if there ever was a kid who should have copied, it would have been you, but you didn't. So okay, and it wasn't all clumped up in A's. It was a very typical distribution with levels of understanding that showed.
So they had two 45-minute classes because of how our administration set up our finals time. They did virtually everything live, so we could check in on them at any time, except as Brenda said, there were a couple of kids that asked for a little bit of extra time to finish stuff up. I don't think I even had anybody that took an extra half an hour. It was more like 15 minutes to finish writing out some answers to their satisfaction, and then they submitted it right after. There was a little bit, like Brenda had more of an issue than I did with this one, is students that showed up late to the meet so that they were late getting into their breakout rooms.
We had a standardized schedule, so we were very synchronous for this. And despite that, and despite the fact that their first class was it at 8? We normally start at 7:30. I had students who, even on this, showed up a half hour late, and so they come to the class meet and say, where is everybody? And I'm saying, today's the final, honey. Your group has already gone on. And I do have to tell you, I did have one poor child who got lost between talking to me sending her a link, and she had to click on the link to go meet up with her group, and she never made it. Most of them made it, and they were late. I had one class where I had, I think, 3 kids late, so I just made them their own group. I set up a new group because I'm like, it's not fair to the other people who've been working on it the whole time.
So that's just something to be aware of, I think. We were talking, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but some of the other things that we were thinking of using escape rooms for were review for summative. It'd be a really fun way to get kids to review their work. A pre-test for content, especially not knowing what kids are coming in with this year. This might be a fun way to kind of test the waters and see what you've got. Shorter ones for formative assessment along the way. It's fun practice, and it would be interesting to see what students came up with if they worked in groups to create their own escape rooms. And I'm sure
I'm a big fan of, like, students of 2 things here. Project-based learning is always a good time as far as I've seen. And having students work backwards, where they create problems and then you can have other kids solve it as well. That might be a great way to work this too, because having kids work that process, I think, can be really beneficial.
So, considering that we may well be remote, because Bow High School is starting live, we're starting in person, believe it or not. At some point, no doubt, we will be remote. So I don't know, maybe we should be looking at this as a midterm.
Yeah, or this format.
Have them do their own as a midterm. That would be an interesting project. So that's just something that pops into my head right now. And I'm sure you can come up with lots of other ways to use it too.
Now I see some, if I could stop, we got some questions.
Okay.
The PDF app that most of our kids used was Adobe, because they're familiar with Adobe products, and it was
Adobe
free.
Scan on their cell phones.
Yep. Very easy to use. I don't know anything about Equatio or Canvas, so I cannot tell you whether either of those would work for this project.
Canvas is, I think I've got the right thing. Canvas is like is like Google Classroom, but juiced up, I believe. So if you remember,
Yeah.
like Moodle, it was kind of like the Moodle days, but
need these.
but I think it's a lot more
God, I had more.
interactive.
Don't.
And so I don't know because we've never used it, but I bet
Here,
that there are ways to
hold on.
incorporate those kind of quiz and assessment elements of Canvas. So you might be able to link up, and I'm not positive on this, but there might be ways to link up stuff in Canvas with your slides, or maybe do this whole thing right in Canvas. I'm not sure, having used it, but I bet you there's capability there.
Yeah, and I think it would work about the same way with PowerPoint as it does with Google Slides. It'd just be slightly different mechanics and how to link everything up. Any other questions? I personally cannot see the chat because I have too many other things open. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so there's lots of other ways to do this. I made a really quick one, and this was the first one I'd ever made in Google Forms, and it took me like 20 minutes tops. It wasn't bad, and you guys can actually go do this if you want to, where I just set up a very simple one. So this was, I just chose balancing reactions, gave some basic directions in the beginning, make sure you know who they're working with when they're doing this. And I would have this set up normally so it automatically collected email addresses so I know whose is whose. First lock, balance it, add up all the coefficients, type that in. So this uses answer verification if you've ever done that. So, and I can't see to edit this right now, can I? I don't think so. It's not going to let me. You can use answer validation. So in this case, I used that the answer had to be equal to the right number, okay? In order to proceed to the next section, they have to answer that one. So if I actually go to preview here, so I'm just going to say my group name is 1. Anybody want to balance it?
It's too hard for me.
I happen to remember what the right answer is, I think.
It's summertime. Expects us to do chemistry.
Okay, so this one, so I upped the ante a little bit. Now they have 2, add up all the coefficients for these 2. If I remember right, the answer was 20. So they have to answer correctly. If they don't answer correctly, it's going to tell you, I send up messages. So each one says something different that says, keep trying, they didn't quite get it. So they cannot proceed until they give the right answer. So this is a really simple way to do a fast one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be pretty satisfying for a quick little activity in the classroom.
Yep.
So feel free to look through that. It should be in the folder with everything else. You can use Google Sites. I haven't done it. I don't know. You can use a lot of things. Anything that you can put hyperlinks into, I think would work.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you were in person, you could actually do a physical escape room where they would have to physically unlock a lock to get the next set of clues, which involves getting boxes, getting locks that you can program the code for, and then figuring out different ways that you can do it so that your answer ends up being translated into however many digits you need for the lock. There are lots of tutorials online for how to do that. I haven't tried it yet. I've played around on Amazon and looked at the different locks you can get, and it would cost a fair amount to get it going, and this is not going to be the year for that, I don't think.
No, it's probably not. But you can also check with your school librarians, because this has been a thing that a lot of librarians do in some schools. I think it's more maybe like middle school kind of a thing to do, but some high school librarians may have some equipment to set up for breakout boxes or escape room boxes or whatever else. So
Sam's going to be ordering that for us off of his budget, right, Sam?
Yeah. I've thought about purchasing some of this stuff, but if that's something you're interested in, let me know. This year may not be the year, though.
This is not the year, no. So like I said, there's lots of tutorials on YouTube available for setting those up if you need a little extra help doing it a different way. So how do we want to go from here? We've got quite a few people. Do we want to break out do you guys just want to play with the resources and we pseudo sages on the stages stay here and answer questions? I don't know. How do we want to do this?
I think we should do, well, we have until 4:15. We have about 15 minutes left. I think maybe do 3 breakout groups. Do you guys know, maybe one of you 3 could set that up. And then maybe one of each of you could go to a breakout group. Could you do that?
Set up breakout rooms. Let me stop sharing. I don't know. I'm not a Zoom person, so.
Let's see here. I'll do it. I'll do 3 breakout rooms. Okay. And then we'll come back together. We'll just break out for maybe 10 minutes, and that'll give everybody a chance to just talk. And then the 3 of you can jump into the different breakout rooms as you'll feel like it. Okay. Number of assigned participants to, I guess I'll do 3 rooms. This is my first time ever making breakout groups, so bear with me.
You can do it.
We have faith.
Here we go.
Oh.
All right.
Did it work?
Whoa.
I see a breakout room.
Breakout room 3.
All right. Did Brenda take 1? I think Brenda went into 1, so I'll take 2.
Oh, I'll do 3.
Then you'll do 3. Okay.
Perfect.
Save the best for last, Sam.